Welcome back to the discussion, DevOps and Rapid Application Development in Government, sponsored by GitLab on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. My guest today is John Jeremiah, Enterprise DevOps Evangelist and Product Marketing Leader at GitLab. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy. You know, when you're in the airport or you're in an event, you meet someone and you try to explain to them what GitLab is all about, how do you differentiate GitLab from the other products out there?
Well, you know, one of the things I often find myself doing is explaining to people what is it that GitLab actually does. And I often start with a simple analogy of people often understand what an automobile factory looks like. They can imagine all of the different parts coming together in the factory and the machines and the tools that help an assembly line work to put the car together. In a lot of ways, GitLab is similar. GitLab really is a lot like a software development factory. It has the tools and the capabilities that an organization or a project needs to manage their work, to plan their work, to track and manage the changes of their source code, reviewing the changes, keeping track of one version from another, and then automating the key steps. We call it continuous integration, of continuously integrating each change and testing the application and testing the code changes to make sure they work. We include security, scanning, dynamic and static scanning to make sure that each change doesn't introduce new vulnerabilities. And we continue on the factory and the pipeline, what we call a pipeline or a tool chain, to deliver that code into an environment where it can run in a container using Kubernetes to manage it. I really think of it, and the best way to describe GitLab is a software development factory that allows an organization or team to quickly stand up and start delivering software as fast as possible.
You know, we all know the old quote, no man is an island, and no app is an island today. All kinds of dependencies and hybrid clouds and new types of clouds and transitions. Every system now is integrated. So how does your product work with portfolio management? We talked about scanning earlier, but testing is important in the federal government also.
Well, you know, that's right. And we've approached solving this problem by having a complete solution to start with, but we also have built what is a very open and extensible API or programming interface that allows connections to be made into GitLab or out of GitLab. You know, we have integrations to portfolio management and project management tools. We have integrations to other continuous integration engines. So really where GitLab offers value is in each of the points along the journey it offers value. The ultimate value is on the end-to-end solution, but we know that organizations and teams will have their tools of choice and they will use specific point solutions as well, in addition to how GitLab will deliver value.
I was talking to a software developer and he was talking about Python and Go and he said, it's all about the API. It sounds like you would agree.
It is all about the API. The API is what allows you to interact with an application. It's the handshake. It's the way you talk to and from an application that gives you the ability to make it do exciting and interesting things. That's how you extend applications, and that's how a lot of modern software is built, through APIs and connecting things together.
Well, we go for a simple phrase like API to a very impressive long word that you can impress your neighbors with, and people might think you're smart, and the word is Kubernetes. And so, you know, you hear this in conversations bat around here and there. So tell us what exactly this big word is, and what's it got to do with GitLab?
Kubernetes is not as complicated as it sounds. But to back up, just a little history as to what is Kubernetes and why is it important. If we look back at how did software get built and how were applications built just a few years ago, we were using virtual machines. You know, go beyond, before that even, we would build it all onto a server, a machine that was unique. And that was incredibly expensive, it was error prone, it was difficult. And the revolution of virtualizing the hardware came forward and allowed us to go much faster. Well, we've moved further than that to where now we've gone to containers. Docker is a form of a container, which eliminates the need for a virtual machine. You can have lots of containers running side by side. And in fact, the power of containers is that we can have lots of individual containers performing a function and then going away. And the proliferation of containers becomes a very real challenge to manage it. And what Kubernetes is effectively is an orchestrator, a way to manage a whole fleet of containers that work for you and run your application, where Kubernetes will allow you to help scale up or scale down depending upon how the application is performing. it really takes a lot of the complexity of managing multiple containers and makes it simpler and easier so you can focus on the application, the service that you're delivering.
So in some areas, your product from GitLab could almost be considered to be a container orchestration system almost, because it can coordinate a lot of the activities, or is that just too limiting?
Well, we're certainly going in that direction. As I look at our roadmap and as we're evolving, part of what we're building is the ability to both plan and manage building the application to deploying and managing the application as it runs. So we have the ability to do canary deployments of deploying just 1 or 2 containers to see how it's going to scale, or to do incremental deployments where you deploy a little bit at a time and gradually deploy more over time. So in a way, yeah, I think that's correct, and we're continuing to evolve in this direction because we know that the future of cloud native applications and microservices, teams are going to need to manage their products like that.
Now, in this environment, we're talking about orchestrating different systems and containers and hybrid cloud. It seems like scanning would be difficult, and in the federal government they talk about static scanning and dynamic scanning. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in these systems, and that's where your product fits in as well. Is that right?
Well, and you're right, and that's one of the biggest challenges, is that with so many different moving parts in an application, all the different pieces of code, all of the different libraries that are included, security is one of the most important things that you can't leave it till the end of the development lifecycle. You know, traditionally we'd often leave security at the very end, and it would take days or weeks for a security team to evaluate an application. That won't work anymore. Today you have to scan early, you have to scan often, and you have to always be looking at what are the vulnerabilities and potential risks that are within the application so you can remediate it as you go. And so that's where dynamic scanning and static scanning are so critical, along with containers scanning and dependency scanning. You can't really leave any part of the application unchecked.
If you read the literature about orchestration, a word that pops up is microservices. It seems like just in the last 4 or 5 years, more and more people are in addition to just apps, there's bundles of apps called microservices, and this is part of the puzzle too, which fits in well with GitLab.
That's right. Well, and what's happening though is because we're going from very large monolithic applications that are, you know, massive applications built where they're tight interdependencies within the applications, we're moving to a world of what would be called cloud native, or small microservices that can exist by themselves, and they can be improved as you go. It gives teams amazing flexibility to be responsive and to react to changes in the market or changes that their users and citizens expect.
My guest today is John Jeremiah, Enterprise DevOps Evangelist and Product Marketing Leader at GitLab. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, on the discussion, DevOps and Rapid Application Development in Government, sponsored by GitLab on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network.